Okay, so today we're going to be looking at comparative and absolute advantages. So we're going to start over here in our top left-hand corner. The two commodities are wheat and cotton, and we assume that these are the only things that this economy can produce. So it says over here, assume 100 acres for production, and New Zealand produces 6, so that is 600 over here. So this is the maximum, okay? So that's 600, and then we have 1,000 units of cotton. And then what they're actually producing is 360 units of wheat and 400. And those are just random numbers. Okay, so the most amount of wheat is 200. So that's assuming that they're using all of their units to produce wheat and no cotton, and if they were to only produce cotton, they could produce 600 bushels. Okay, but where they're actually producing, because right now, because they're not engaging in trade, they're producing, let's say, 150 and 150. Okay, so for absolute advantage, all we're doing is looking at the extremes on each graph and comparing them, and whoever can produce more has the absolute advantage. So if we look over here, we're gonna go, okay, so let's do cotton first. Okay, so we're gonna look at the x-axis. So New Zealand can produce 1,000 and Australia can only produce 600. So 1,000 is greater than 600, which means that New Zealand has the absolute advantage. Now if we look at wheat, which is on our y-axis, New Zealand can produce 600 and Australia can only produce 200. So 600 is greater than 200. That means again New Zealand has the absolute advantage. So now we're going to look at comparative advantage, and comparative advantage looks at which country can produce a good with the lower opportunity cost. Now there are two different formulas, and give up over get is when we're comparing outputs. So in this situation, we would use this formula because these are outputs. But if you're using something like labor, or like hours or acres or like land, so any input to actually get an output, you're going to use a different formula. So these are called inputs, and you're going to use get over give up. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about these formulas. Okay, so with New Zealand, so opportunity cost of producing one additional unit of cotton. So this is how we're going to find the comparative advantage. So to get one additional unit of cotton, New Zealand must give up 600 units of wheat, and in return they get 1,000 units of cotton. So that is 3/5 of wheat. So 1 unit of cotton costs 3/5 of wheat. Now let's look at the opportunity cost of producing one additional unit of wheat. So 1 wheat equals, so we have to give up 1,000 units of cotton, and we get 600 units of wheat. So we are left with 5/3 of cotton. Okay, and now for Australia. So 1 unit of cotton, so let's look over here. So we are giving up 200 units of wheat, and we are getting 600 units of cotton. So that means one additional unit of cotton costs 1/3 of wheat. And then if we look over here, so 1 additional unit of wheat, we have to give up 600 units of cotton, and we are going to get 200 units of wheat. So that means the cost of 1 additional unit of wheat is going to be 3 units of cotton. So what we do here to find the comparative advantage is, I'm going to use a different color just so that you can see which stands out. Okay, so over here we compare which one is smaller. So in this situation, 1/3 is less than 3/5. So I'm going to circle that. So that means Australia is going to have the comparative advantage in producing cotton. And then if we look at wheat production, 3 is greater than 5/3. So that means New Zealand has the comparative advantage for producing wheat. And the reason it has the comparative advantage is because the actual opportunity cost of producing one additional unit is lower than it is for Australia. So now this is just a little explanation of why, here I'm going to do this over here, of why free trade or world trade, let's say, is beneficial. So before, if we take a look at our numbers here, we were producing so world output of wheat was 360 plus 150. So that would be 510. And then the world output of cotton would be 150 plus 400. So that is 550. Okay? But now, and this is using 200 acres. Because it says assume 100 acres for production. So we're saying that each country is using 100 acres. So that's with 200 acres. So that's before trade. And now if we look at after trade, the world output of wheat, and we're using comparative advantage values. So with the comparative advantage in wheat, we would see that they are producing 600 units of wheat. And the world output of cotton is also going to be 600 because Australia is going to be producing cotton. And so as we can see, you're still using 200 acres. So over here, the total value is greater than before. So, and like 600 units of wheat is greater than 510 units of wheat, and 600 units of cotton is greater than 550 units of cotton. So of course the world is much better off engaging in trade and using our idea of comparative advantage. So that's basically it. And the consumption gains are just that the world is has a more efficient use of resources. There's more competition, which means higher quality, there's more output, and of course political ties. But that's basically comparative and absolute advantage. If you have any questions, post in the, just leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.